Well, hey, life groups. I hope you have been having a meaningful Lent season. If you've been connecting, especially throughout this Lent journey and Lent series we've been on together as we look forward to Easter, which now is not too far away, a couple weeks away, which we're really excited to celebrate. And as we've been on this journey of considering what we would give up for love in Lent, especially built around our calling in Ephesians to live a life of love that we're called to, this week, we were talking about what does it look like to give up lust in our lives? Knowing part of what Ephesians says, what Paul writes, is that he calls us to not allow our love to turn into lust. And I shared about how in some ways, or maybe a lot of ways, lust is kind of the exact opposite of love, because lust is about sort of greed and coveting, and obviously specifically is referring to our sexual or romantic desires. But I talked about how we want to grow as people of agape love. That's the Greek word for love here in the New Testament, of people that want to give of ourselves or love others no matter what the cost is to us. And so that's kind of the journey and conversation we were in as it relates to lust, and particularly then looked at Jesus's teaching of how seriously Jesus takes lust, because he cares about what's going on in our hearts and is inviting us to consider what do we need to root out of our lives or our relationships or our hearts to not allow ourselves to fall into lust. And so hopefully you maybe would want to read Jesus' words in Matthew 5:27-30. We've got a variety of questions in our conversation starters to help facilitate this conversation, consider where it applies to us personally. And obviously I get that there's a measure of vulnerability or delicacy maybe to a conversation particularly like this. And so let's be sensitive to each other. And let's also recognize that when we lean into the power of community, we can find such camaraderie and such love and such growth and change. And so I pray that you can experience maybe even a unique measure of that in your group this week. But most of all, I pray that we can all keep growing in love as we give up any and everything in our lives that can get in the way of it, including this week reflecting on lust in our lives or in our world and how we want to give that up together. So I pray that you have a very meaningful conversation, and we look forward to continuing this journey and celebrating Easter together in a couple of weeks. Take care.